Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October Building and Grounds Committee. We're going to begin with a roll call.
Ms. Parker?
Present.
Mr. Hunter? Mr. Hess? Mr. Snipes? Mr. Seroy? Mr. Dunnell? Mr. Kirkstra? Mr. Smith? Ms. Armour Earps? Mr. Ashcraft? Ms. Monday? Mr. Scanlon? Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Alexander Hildebrand? We have a quorum.
Excellent, great. Okay, are there any public comments? I don't see anyone in the back there, but I'll say, are there any public comments? Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the approval of the September 14th minutes. Do I have a motion in front? Motion by Aaron Dunhill and second by Ms. Armour Earps. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay. Seeing as we don't have any presentations today, we're going to go directly to Mr. Andrews and get a buildings report.
Thank you. Well, facility dude report for the month of September, we had 153 work orders in the system. Next item on the agenda is the financial report that you have in front of you there. You can see we're at 985 so far this year compared to over $1 million last year. A few items that we can talk about are 52-100, which are building maintenance and improvements. We're significantly behind where we were at this point last year, so that's certainly good. Miscellaneous services 56-400. You can see we are ahead of where we were at this point last year, and that's service repairs by outside contractors. So that's an item that is always it's always high and difficult to control. Obviously, we try to control it. Our staff attempts all repairs until such point that we have to make a call, and that's something that's how we've done it for the 5.5 years that I've been here. So we try to keep that number to a minimum, but to some extent, it is what it is. Building maintenance and improvements, 87,510 is at 72,000 this year, and some of those items are, I went through a little bit here. So if you remember, we had just under $30,000 in hot water storage tank replacement at Jerome Combs that we talked about at this committee a few months ago. And then with that, there was quite a bit of valve replacements that needed to happen with that project as well. As they went to shut the water off, the valves were not working. So that was lumped into there as well. And then we had the flashing out at Jerome Combs that we've talked about at this meeting, where the water was leaking in the windowsills. So we did that. That was 15. So that's 45 right there of that 72. And then some of the other expenses in that line item were the flooring for the old VAC, which is here. Some other work for that Schuyler Avenue building as well. So that was $8,000 and $6,500 right there. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what that line item entails. I don't know. I'll talk to the chairman and see where we're at as far as, maybe moving some money at the end of the year, although that may not be likely, but we'll maybe have a conversation. But that's the financial report. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Mr. Snipes.
Thank you. Just a question. I know we use the term miscellaneous services and miscellaneous supplies. Generally, when those numbers reach a level over and above 10 grand, they used to say they had to be a name to it. Why? I'm trying to figure out why haven't they used the term auxiliary supplies or auxiliary, because that's supplemental versus miscellaneous, because I wouldn't know what that is.
I can talk to Mr. McCarty about changing the name, but 56-400, you could call that service repairs by outside contractors.
Right.
I mean, that's what that is service repairs by outside contractors. And then miscellaneous supplies is cleaning supplies for the buildings, toilet paper, paper towels, anything like that. Those are miscellaneous supplies for the building. So those are the types of items that go into each of those codes.
Right. I understood what they were. It's just I was thinking auxiliary would have been a better word, because it kind of deals with it as far as that. That's up on them, but for accounting purposes, I was just looking at that. And then the other thing that just raises eyebrow is that your total budget was 77,000, but your prior year actual was 123, and in the to date you are at 129. And so I'm wondering, are they underfunding this particular budget, given that in the prior year, because that's basically what you would base it off of, and I don't know if that's you, but whomever, that they would kind of bring that number up to a more realistic number, because it appears that that number has far exceeded 77, was what they actually budgeted, even in the prior year, let alone the year to date.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah, it's certainly over, and it's like I said, it's something that, you know, we do our best, and I hope each year that we can keep that number down. But as history would show, it's probably not feasible. So that's something that I would take into consideration for next year's budget and having a conversation with the appropriate individuals.
Okay, thank you so much for that information. Would you like to move on now to your next item?
All right, so moving on to the building update. Not a whole lot to cover at the buildings. Knock on wood, it's everything's been going pretty well. Getting ready for winter at all the buildings. We've been performing preventative maintenance on our boilers as we get those ready for winter. They're actually running right now, which is a little earlier than what I had initially anticipated. We did have a couple small pinholes in the roof up on 6. We had a contractor out yesterday. We got those addressed in short order, especially with the rain in the forecast for the rest of the week. I wanted to make sure we jumped on that. The muffler atop the generator, we've talked about that a couple times at this committee. I'm working with our vendor on that. That could be a few $1,000 to get that done, but I think that's something we need to do. It's awfully unsightly. And when that generator runs, it is quite loud as you walk past it. So it's something I would like to move forward on. I hope to get some numbers that I can report back at next month's meeting. At the courthouse, the plaque commemorating the remodel has been hung in the basement. Looks excellent. So next time you're over there, check that out. I met with 2 contractors regarding the basement awning that we're looking at doing. Chief Judge had asked me to look at enclosing the ramp. Obviously with jurors entering through the basement, there's quite a line out there, and he thought, and I agree, it would be nice to, get them out of the elements while they're waiting to enter, jurors and, anybody using the handicap entrance. So nothing more to report on that yet. When I get the numbers and the schematics on that, obviously we will discuss that as soon as I get them. The structure atop the courthouse, there's some steel up there. I reached out. Yes, Andy? Andy, oh.
Just so we can kind of put it to bed, the Historical Society has been consulted about the ramp and the awning, so you don't need to worry about us going afoul of, because that's a historic building, the structure itself. So just the committee knows it's not an issue, because we're not permanently affixing it to the courthouse.
Thank you.
So moving on, there's some steel atop the dome of the courthouse. It was recommended that we look at getting that removed. I got an estimate for the removal, which was $1,500. I think that is a good number. I wouldn't go up there for $1,500 to remove that. So that's something that I hope to schedule here in short order to get that cleaned up. And obviously it'll make the dome atop the courthouse look very nice. And annex and old jail, again, we went through the boilers. They did find some repairs that were needed, so that's always nice to find those before the snow flies. We're going to be adding glycol to both systems at the annex and the old jail. And then old jail toilets, I am still working on that. That has been an absolute nightmare. The toilets at the old jail that we discussed are very, very old, and trying to get the manufacturer to make that toilet specifically to our spec has been difficult. And I hope I'm nearing the finish line on this, but still waiting, because we're in need of 3 toilets soon, and I'd like to have a couple in stock, and they run about $2,000 a piece for the sink toilet combos. So I'm still working on that. At JCDC, we had some laundry issues. I had to outsource the repairs to those because it exceeded our abilities in-house. We are going to be cleaning the kitchen hoods and exhaust systems actually tonight. The contractor's going in to go through all the hoods and the exhaust in the kitchen at Jerome Combs. We had a couple issues with some ovens out there, and luckily we were able to find some ovens here in town that come out of a former restaurant. We actually got them for $1,000. 2 double commercial ovens, which probably retail for $15,000 or more. So really got a good deal on those. So we bought those, we moved them out there, we hooked them up. So happy to report that. Couple projects that we are tentatively looking at Jerome Combs. So over the last few years, we've been trying to move away from shower curtains. So the shower curtains are they're expensive and they don't last very long. And we found a product, I think about 3 or 4 years ago. We did the first phase of one of the dorms, and it's basically a saloon door. It's a gray saloon door type. It opens. I call it a saloon door. It sways open, and they're not terribly expensive, and obviously they're going to last a whole lot longer than a shower curtain. So I've been in communication with the sheriff. He would like to see some more of those done. For longevity speaking, for the shower areas. So I will, have something to report back on that, hopefully at next month's meeting. And then the shower painting is still to come. If you remember, we've talked about that at the committee several months ago. That's a logistical nightmare to move inmates around because from what I've been told, it could take, I think it was 2 weeks. The epoxy paint that they would be using has to cure for 2 weeks before you would be able to use the shower. So trying to move inmates to different areas, it's going to happen. It needs to be done, but there's just going to have to be an incredible amount of coordination with corrections to make that happen. So that's all for my building report. Any questions on that? All right. Well, we'll move on to an animal control update. We've got some photos to share with you, which we'll share. I guess we can go ahead and do that now. You can just scroll through them, Kelly. So that's going to be obviously the rear. That's the masonry going up. That's the garage where you would pull in right to the side of the building. Picture from the back.
Nice.
So this is the inside, obviously, with the framing.
Oh, that's great.
Is that it? Okay.
Oh, nice.
So that kind of gives you an idea of where things are at so far at Animal Control. We had a call Tuesday of this week. We have a bi-weekly call. And one of the issues that was raised during the meeting, there's been some back and forth between White's engineer and the Village of Bourbonnais engineer with regard to the drainage on site and the detention ponds or retention ponds on site. And there's some calculations that the Village of Bourbonnais engineer is saying that White needs to adjust. So they're going back and forth right now. Actually, we got some emails on that yesterday. And it could potentially hold up the utilities to the site, which obviously we don't want to have happen, as the goal is. And I stopped by there earlier in the week and talked to the foreman. The plan is to be under roof before the snow flies. And obviously, if we encounter any, substantial delays, that could create some issues. So I'm trying to stay on top of this the best I can. So I reached out to the Village of Bourbonnais, talked to some people there, and they got back to me yesterday. So we're trying to move this along the best we can. And then the other issue that was raised, the space in the attic indoors is not large enough for a wet sprinkler system. So they have to use a dry sprinkler system, and I don't have much experience with dry sprinkler systems, but it sounds as though with a dry system you have to have a nitrogen generator. So I've been looking into that, and the cost for that is $25,000. So I've been talking with the chairman. We believe obviously that should have been uncovered before before now, maybe during the, the architectural phase of the project. So I will certainly dig a little deeper into that, but those are the only two issues that we have at this point, and we're working diligently to rectify those. So that's all I got.
Great. Any, still on the June 24 completion date?
Yep.
Good deal. All right. Okay, we have no old business. No old business? Okay. Do we have any new, Chairman Wheeler?
Just in terms of budget, we're looking at adding somebody with a expertise in plumbing. Talking to Wes about it because we have so much plumbing work in all of our buildings, especially the two jails. We would be able to tackle all of those other things like the maintenance on the grounds and all of those other things within the facility if we had someone dedicated to plumbing work. And they could work almost every day, all day on plumbing.
The service repairs outside contractors, what we had just discussed earlier, is probably, I would guess, 75 to 80% plumbing, I would guess, is probably in that number.
So the cost benefit would be to have them on staff doing all the plumbing here, not calling on people, having somebody to triage middle of the night stuff instead of calling in people, that kind of thing. So we've got the numbers, it'll just be presented in the budget.
That makes sense.
Now, finding that person may be another issue altogether, because as we know, it's tough to find people. So, but at least we'll account for the allocation on spend, and it should be, in my opinion, at least budget neutral, or else it doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you add in grounds maintenance as well.
Mm-hmm.
With that in the picture, I don't see how it doesn't pay for itself.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. Any other business that we need to discuss this morning? Okay, with that, entertain a motion. Mr. Hess, recognize Mr. Hess, and second by Ms. Monday. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Meeting